will begin this meeting of the Planning and Land Use Management Committee. I'm Councilmember Weezer. I've been joined by Councilmember Marquise Harris Dawson, Councilmember Cedillo, and Councilmember Felipe Fuentes. On item number 6, we will note and file. And we will continue item number 4 to February 23rd. Continue item number 5 to February 9th. Item number 4 has been continued. I just got some public speaking cards. That item has been continued to February 23rd. So I got about 3 public speaking cards right now. That item's been continued to February 23rd. And we will begin on item number 1, please.
Sure, Councilman. Item 1 is a report from the mayor. It's related to the appointment of Vince Bertoni as the Director of City Planning.
Okay. We could have Mr. McQuiston, please. Sorry, I'm reading my public cards. Could I have Mr. Bertoni, please, come up? Mr. Bertoni, welcome. You are a former LA city planner and went off and did some great things at the city of Pasadena, and now you're back. Thank you. Welcome back.
Thank you.
It's a great nomination that the mayor has made, and we certainly look forward to working with you. Not only are you well-versed in the issues of planning and land use, but also someone easy to get along with and work with to get things done. And certainly, as I've worked with you in the past when you were here, someone that cares deeply about the city and also is looking out in the best public interest for the city, neighborhoods, and communities. So I certainly appreciate that. We look forward to you continue to represent that for the department. And so with that, unless there are any opening remarks, we could have Mr. Bertoni speak and then have any questions or comments after he speaks. And for the record, we've been joined by Councilmember Mitch Englander. So welcome, Mr. Bertoni. Any opening comments?
Thank you, Chair Weezer, members of the committee. I just want to for me, I'll try to be brief. I'm really excited to be here. I think that I can't think of one of the most important times in this city's history where this city needs to pay attention to its vision of how it plans its city. And I'm really looking forward to leading that and leading the department that's really entrusted with that. As we move forward in planning, we think of it really in 2 major parts, and we have to really pay attention to both. The policy part of it, where are we going in the long term, as well as the very immediate part in terms of development projects and how they come through. And I'm really looking forward to the various partnerships that are involved with that, which includes very much the city council, this city committee, as well as with the assistance of our staff. And I think we have really in the planning department one of the finest staffs around. I'm also looking forward to working with all of the various departments that are involved in the development process, such as building and safety, transportation, engineering, and fire department, as well as really working with the community. And sometimes that's represented by folks who live in the neighborhood. Sometimes it's represented by business owners, by people who own land, and then also people who are trying to develop properties. This is a very large and diverse city, and one of my jobs will be to really lead a department that is really paying attention to all of the city, that really values each and every aspect of the city in each and every part of it. And I'm really looking forward to that. I've spent some time in other cities before I came here. I went away for a while, now I'm coming back. And to me, this really feels like home. And so I'm really looking forward to this. I just want to thank you all for your consideration.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Mr. Harris Dawson?
Thank you so much, Mr. Bertoni. We're very excited to have you here today, and thank you for coming by our office and beginning a conversation about South LA and some of the more challenging parts of the city with regard to land development and land use. You talked about a department that represents all of the city and works with all of the city. I had a very specific question about diversity at the top in the leadership of the Department of Planning. What's your vision for that? How do you think it's gone so far, and how do you expect to recruit the kind of talent that would be representative of the town?
Thank you. It's a great question. In any city, first and foremost, I'm always going to have to recruit the best talent, and that's always going to be a top priority. And I think that if you actually are recruiting the best talent, it's going to be a diverse talent pool. And I think I feel very strongly about having an executive leadership team that reflects both the composition of the department as well as the composition of the entire city. And so I think that's something that I take very seriously. My track record when I was in Pasadena, I had a very diverse executive team, which I had promoted. I'd either hired or promoted all of them. And so my hiring and promotions were extremely diverse. And it's because I really looked at one thing, which is hiring the best people and making sure that the people that I hired really understood the challenges of the community that they were serving.
Mr. Englander?
Godspeed.
Anybody else? No. Okay. Thank you. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Bertoni, and we certainly look forward to working with you. I enjoyed our conversation and speaking about the importance of us not only processing cases through the department, but also looking at the long-term vision for this city, and that includes updating our community plans in a much more quicker manner. As you know, since when you were here, we've been talking about updating our community plans for years, and we've got to build capacity and build that infrastructure, those basic tenets of what planning is all about as we continue moving forward. I know there's so much growth right now, there's so much change, transformation happening to the city about this, but at the same time, I strongly believe we need to build the basic elements of what makes a planning department in a city with respect to planning, and that is our community plans, looking at our general plan. Great news, and your planning department has been working very hard in updating our general plan with the mobility element, health element. I think we did housing a couple of years ago, and I think we've been doing great progress there. But at the neighborhood level, updating our community plans is something that I will be speaking with the mayor about in terms of putting some additional funding and financial support behind getting those efforts moving even quicker than they've been. So we'll move on into public comment now, and then we'll vote. Thank you. Jim McQuiston, Jim Anderson, Edgar Kalasian.
Jim McQuiston, you have my statement. I also look at the budget very closely and the infrastructure of the city, and I am concerned about the planning department because we seem to have two opposing interests in the planning department. One is adherence to the general plan, and the other one is forgetting the general plan. If you look at our 36 plans, and you can only change plans 4 times a year, and you figure out you have to change them all in 5 years, that's only 20 changes of 36 plans. That means some of them have to be changed simultaneously, and we have to get busy on that rather than trying to give special interests their deviations from what the state says is the law.
Thank you. Jim Anderson.
Good afternoon, Chair Huizar and honorable committee members. My name is Jim Anderson. I'm a senior vice president with Trammell Crow Company. I've worked with Vince for many, many years in different municipalities. I have a great deal of respect for Vince and his acumen in this job. It's always been a pleasure and a challenge to work with Vince. One of the things that's a delight as a developer is there is very few moments in which Vince leaves ambiguity when you leave a meeting with what he is looking for and what he expects. And if you walk in with a project that isn't fully thought through or fully baked, Vince will ask you to go back to the drawing board and bring it appropriately to you. That is feedback that is incredibly valuable in advancing the goals of the city. He understands urban planning, loves urban planning, wants to enliven and envision neighborhoods, make the pedestrian, bicycle, vehicle, and public transportation experiences better, more alive. He understands, how important development is.
Your time is up, sir. If you could
Okay.
wrap it up. Okay,
Thank you.
great. Thank you. Next.
Edgar Claudian. I'm a partner at Mayor Brown, land use attorney. I am here today wearing my Recode LA hat as co-chair of the City Zoning Advisory Committee. We regularly deal with all of the issues, planning department related issues. There's so many important community plans that are being updated right now, including downtown. We're in the process of rezoning the entire city. These are very complicated, delicate issues that really require a true leader to undertake, and I'm beyond confident that Vince Bertoni is that leader. He has an open door policy. He understands planning. He's a great leader. We have an amazing amount of talent in the planning department, and we really need a leader to bring out that talent and to grow and mature all of the young planners that the city has recently hired. And unequivocally, Vince has the skill set and ability to lead and grow the department. Thank you.
Thank you. Wayne?
Yes, you found an excellent puppet. Very good job. This man has traveled far. He used to work for Malibu, the gold standard. Then he went a little bit lower to Beverly Hills. And then he went down to Pasadena and tried to get the football team to play in the Rose Bowl. And his EIR survived the litigation. But the people of Pasadena don't want fucking football in their city. And that's why he's here today. He's the perfect puppet for all of you because he needs this job. He's got to have this job. And he'll do whatever you want, even if it's against all of us. So he's the excellent puppet. So you'll vote yes. Welcome, new puppet.
Thank you, Wayne. Always a pleasure. Thank you very much. And any other questions or comments? On item number 1, motion to move by Cedillo, second by Englander. Any objections? So ordered. Congratulations. Thank you. Item number 2.
Item 2, Councilman, is a motion Bonin O'Farrell. It's directing city planning along with the housing department to prepare a Mellow Act ordinance.
Thank you. Do we have staff here?
Yes. Good afternoon, council members. This is Simon Pastusha with the Planning Implementation Division of the Planning Department. So before you is a motion by Councilman Bonin regarding implementation of a Mellow Act ordinance. The Mellow Act and the city have a long history going back into the 90s. Right now, we are currently under a settlement agreement because of a lawsuit, and we have what's called interim administrative procedures that are in place, but they are generally short-term. We have gone through the process of trying to generate an ordinance in 2005 through 2008 and several, but it just never made it to consensus. We got it through Planning Commission, but we never got it adopted by council. So the council member is asking that we redirect our efforts. We've been getting staff in place to focus on our geographic teams, including a coastal unit, plus also getting a technical unit to work with code amendments, and also a housing to do monitoring. And so that is the basic steps that we're moving forward on this. I'm just giving you a brief summary. There is a long council file history on this case, and the city attorneys can nod on the legal history on this case. And I believe you have lots of people who want to just comment about the need for this ordinance to be put in place. And it mainly affects, the Mellow Act affects the coastal zone in the city of Los Angeles, which affects 2 council districts and affects the communities of Palisades, Venice, Playa del Rey, and the harbor community, San Pedro. The Mellow Act is about protecting existing affordable housing units and people who with affordable incomes in the coastal zone, and also generating affordable housing units when there's new construction. And then there's a whole series of processes about it, but the interim administrative procedures, sometimes referred to as the IAP, basically goes through all the steps to review that, including reviewing the tenant's rental rates, the tenant's annual income, and those sort of details. It gets to be very technical in nature and a long process to explain all the details, but this ordinance is hopefully going to move forward and take the interim administrative procedures and move it into an ordinance format. And then under state law, under the Mellow Act, local cities, jurisdictions can adopt a local ordinance to implement the Mellow Act. And I will be available if you have further questions, but I think you probably have a few comment cards.
Mr. Fuentes.
Absolutely. The way, even under the current IAP, we have the Housing Department, Building Safety Department, and Planning Department are all part of the administrative process, and they will also be part of the process of the crafting of the ordinance. And so because there are certain things they do which are unique to exactly recording the covenants, doing analysis of basically income levels, rental rates, they've always been part of this process. It would be in coordination with the Housing Department, of course. This week we've been doing now under the interim administrative procedures. The covenants are recorded and approved by the Housing Department. We set the conditions of approval on a project requiring those covenants. And then we also go through the process of analysis on income levels and everything in coordination with the Housing Department. They submit a report back to us that we in turn incorporate into any action that's in front of us.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And we've been joined by Councilmember Bonin on this item. If we could hear from him now. Thank you. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, colleagues, members of the committee. Before I start, I should let you know that the audience is getting restless because a number of the mics, they're not projecting back. Yours is doing pretty well. Mr. Fuentes' wasn't, so they had a hard time hearing what he was saying. So a lot of folks moved up. I want to thank you for your consideration of this item today. Can you hear me?
Not
okay,
really.
well, yeah. I'll do what I can. I want to thank you for your consideration of this item today. This is an item which many of you may not be very familiar with because it is actually in the coastal zone. And it has to deal significantly with affordable housing in Los Angeles. If our affordable housing crisis in Los Angeles is a disease, in the coastal zone, it's becoming fatal. The threat against affordable housing in the coastal zone right now is existential. It is being lost. Neighborhoods, the fundamental character of neighborhoods are changing, and the coastal zone is at risk increasingly every day of becoming an enclave just of the rich. And that is not what the California Coastal Act envisioned. That is not what most of us who live in the coastal zone want, and it's causing irreparable damage to affordable housing in Los Angeles and to the nature of our neighborhoods. This is something which is desperately in need of a solution. In fact, in the strategy report that comes to the Council from the Committee on Homelessness and Poverty, one of the 50 recommendations is to enact a permanent and tougher version of our Mellow Ordinance. The Mellow Act was approved about 30 years ago, and it was meant to preserve and protect affordable housing in the coastal zone. About 16 years ago, the city got sued for not implementing it and enforcing it properly. As a result, we came up with an agreement that was enshrined in the IAP, the interim administrative procedures that was outlined before. There's some very good things about it, and there's some very big holes in it. What the IAP essentially says is if you're building something in the coastal zone of 10 units or more, you need to have affordable housing. That's good. It also says if you're doing a project and you're displacing affordable housing, 10 units or more in your project, you need to replace that. That's also good. Where there's a huge hole is in units, buildings or projects with fewer than 10 units, Because this is interim rules and it is not an ordinance, we don't have any mechanism really for in lieu fees or for requiring any or having any teeth in an ordinance in which to protect or replace that affordable housing. And as a result, in the coastal zone, particularly in Venice, we're suffering a death by 1,000 cuts. Most of the projects, I would say the preponderance of them anyway, are one-offs, two-offs, three-offs, where a four-unit building is becoming a duplex or a single-family home, or a duplex is becoming a single-family home, and there's no mechanism for us to save those units. We have a so-called feasibility analysis that can be done to determine whether or not it's feasible for the person developing the property to preserve or replace the affordable housing units. But the process is really a joke. The feasibility analysis is done by the person who's doing the project, and we do not have currently in the city of Los Angeles the expertise to really challenge that. As a result, grassroots activists in my community have been going out and doing their own feasibility analysis, going out and chasing down former tenants and finding out what income levels were to try desperately to fight either at the city level or at the Coastal Commission level to defend these last few remaining units. So we need to replace the IAP with a permanent ordinance. For a considerable period of time, I think there were folks concerned about affordable housing who were afraid of the city doing just that, because they were afraid that the city would water down the IAP. And that, I think, is a time that has passed in Los Angeles. I think we all, certainly every member of this committee, understands the importance of preserving affordable housing, and that this is a time when we can replace the IAP with a tougher and a stricter and a more defensible of affordable housing ordinance. So what I would ask today is for you to favorably look upon the motion I've submitted, ask Planning and HCID to work on a revised ordinance with sort of three provisions to it. One is that the IAP be the floor and not the ceiling of new rules, that we come up with tougher rules that give us protections that are stronger than what we have now, particularly for buildings or projects with 10 units or fewer. Two, that the city staff work with the attorneys of record on this issue who helped us craft the IAP so we can come up with something that is going to work for everybody, so we know that we're taking care of affordable housing and we're not going to face litigation. And three, that Planning and HCID work together to either hire a consultant or bring in-house expertise to HCID to do feasibility analysis in-house. So we're actually doing it with real legitimacy and rigor, and we're doing everything we can to protect what remains of affordable housing. I'd like to thank you for your consideration. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Great. Thank you very much, Councilmember Bonin.
Thank you.
Questions for our council member who proposed this motion to? Okay. City of.
I couldn't hear you either.
Still getting used to it. Thank you. Did you indicate what you wanted with under 10 units?
No, one of the things I'd like is for HCID and Planning to work with the attorneys of record to come up with a few different ideas. I certainly think that it would be reasonable to come up with in lieu fees, with an agreement with the attorneys of record and affordable housing activists to come up with a window or an area within the coastal zone or within Venice or within the immediate community where units would need to be replaced. Something to either replace or recapture those units so that we don't just sweep them out into the sea and forget about them completely.
This is a 1-to-1 ratio?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Veronica Perez, David Ewing, and Jim McQuiston.
Good afternoon, Council.
I'm sorry, before you start.
Sorry.
You can start. All public speakers have 1 minute each. Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, Veronica Perez, representing Keep Neighborhoods Keep Neighborhoods First, a coalition of neighbors, tenants, and affordable housing advocates concerned about short-term rentals and their effects on our communities. We are in support of this motion, and we want to applaud Councilmember Bonin for pushing this important issue forward, as well as the committee. After years of inaction, it is time for the city to adopt a formal and permanent implementing ordinance for the Mellow Act. Venice is ground zero for short-term rentals in Los Angeles. Despite the Act's prohibition against the conversion of residential housing to non-residential uses, we have already seen thousands of units of affordable housing go by the wayside. Entire RSO buildings are being flipped into short-term rentals, harassing and displacing vulnerable tenants and longtime community members. This is the exact type of housing the Mellow Act is supposed to preserve. We urge the committee to adopt a strong ordinance with an effective enforcement arm that closes loopholes to curtail the loss of housing that we have experienced. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is David Ewing. I'm a Venice resident long-term. A recent Harvard study says that 58.5% of Los Angeles area renters can't afford what they're paying. The Mellow Act applies to only a very small portion of the city, but within that area it provides a powerful tool to protect affordable housing, but only if the city is willing to use it. It's been in effect for 35 years, and during that period, the city has let thousands of affordable units in the coastal zone disappear unreplaced. In the Venice coastal zone, the crisis has been caused largely by a failure to protect existing housing. Venice has historically had a very high level of affordable housing, but we're building housing faster in Venice than anywhere else in the city, but instead of helping solve the crisis, it's actually accelerating it as luxury homes replace affordable ones at a rate found nowhere else. We desperately need a strong Mellow Act implementation ordinance, and one that actually addresses the problems on the ground, putting housing retention dead center. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim McQuiston, Robert Manford, Susan Brown.
Jim McQuiston, you know, I'm kind of embarrassed at this. You look at my statement there, it was pretty plain what the court said. That was the Court of Appeals. That's in effect. And you know, we have the Joseph Stalin principle in the city, which means how many divisions does the court have? We have 10,000. And it's time we stop that. It's time we really get things going a lot faster than this. The United States can work faster, from my experience, than this amendment. We need faster work in planning. We've got to have it.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. Robert Manford with HSID, Housing and Community Investment Department. Just wanted to let you know that HSID is in full support of this motion, and we're excited to be working together with City Planning Department as well as the City Attorney's Office and all stakeholders to make sure that there is a permanent ordinance that codifies the procedures. We'll be available in case you have any questions for housing. Right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Suzanne Brown. I'm a senior attorney with the Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles. My office has been at the forefront of Mellow compliance since 1993, when we sued the city for failing to comply with the Mellow Act's affordable housing requirements. As a result of the success of our lawsuit, we entered into a settlement with the city in 2000. In 2000, the city's interim administrative procedures for complying with the Mellow Act were also adopted, and these procedures mirror the terms of our settlement. For the past 16 years, we have monitored and enforced the terms of our settlement and the procedures with great success. The Mellow procedures have resulted in the preservation and creation of affordable housing in the city's coastal zone. We support moving forward with a permanent Mellow ordinance at this time, so long as the agreed-upon goals are to strengthen the Mellow procedures, close loopholes, and maximize the preservation and creation of affordable housing in the coastal zone. As we move forward with this process, the IAP must be the starting point for any ordinance. And just to clarify one quick point on in-lieu fees, we would only be supportive of in-lieu fees for partial units for buildings with 9 or fewer units. Thank you.
Thank you. Joan, I think it's King. Becky Dennison, and Robin Ruddersill.
Good afternoon. My name is Joan Ling. I live in the 11th District. In my 30-plus year career, I started out as a financial analyst. I then became a affordable housing developer, and now I'm a university lecturer. I've been involved with the city's mellow issues since 1999, when I supported LAFLA, Power, and other community groups in negotiating the terms of the interim ordinance. And since then, I have been working on several of the project level financial feasibility review and negotiation on mellow projects. I'm here today to encourage the city to establish upfront a clear methodology to calculate mellow project feasibility and to set up a range of regularly published data sources pertaining to costs, expenses, return thresholds, and other pertinent information, so that in the permanent ordinance,
You could wrap up your last sentence, please.
okay,
Thanks.
will be transparent and easy to use for developers, neighbors, advocates, and city staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Becky Dennison.
Hello, I'm Becky Dennison with Venice Community Housing. I'm going to hold this actually because it's very hard to hear back there. We are a community-based developer working to prevent displacement, increase access to affordable housing, and preserve the longstanding diversity of Venice and surrounding communities, which is exactly what the Mellow Act allows you all to help us do in Venice and the coastal zone. And so we're in full support of the motion and this going forward, and support what other people have said about the interim procedures being the backbone and closing all of the loopholes that we've figured out have existed through the implementation of that, but not pulling away any of those protections. And we also need to make sure the inclusionary requirements are real, that they're on site, that there's no in lieu fees except in the case of a partial unit when the development isn't big enough to produce them on site. If we do too many in lieu fees or too many exceptions, we end up losing the housing altogether. We lose the money. We cannot produce at the way that we can on site. So I want to make sure that the inclusionary and the enforcement of the inclusionary is incredibly strong in the new ordinance. And so we look forward to working with you on that.
Thank you. Robin, Jose Coronel, Lydia. Welcome.
Falling apart. Robin Rudisill, I'm here as an individual relating my own views and concerns, but as the Venice Neighborhood Council Land Use and Planning Committee Chair, there's no other issue that I'm asked about and grilled more on to assure we, the volunteers of the Neighborhood Council, have done everything we can to protect and preserve affordable units in the Venice Coastal Zone. The future of the Venice Coastal Zone as a special coastal community depends on it, and the Los Angeles economy depends on it. My main point and request is to please assure that the Coastal Zone community members such as me, Lydia Ponce, and key organizations like Power, LAFLA, Western Center are integrally involved in this process and not just involved when they're done with the first draft of the ordinance. As someone who has done a lot of appeals of the Mellow Act determinations to the area planning commissions, I have seen time and again that the planning staff assigned does not understand or correctly implement the Mellow Act and the procedures or how to use it to preserve affordable units. We just can't keep waiting and losing affordable units that should be protected. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jose Cornell.
Can you lift the microphone, please, so we could speak into the microphone? Thank you.
I'm Jose Cornell. I'm here from Power, and I got a statement here that says, and for affordable state Mellow Act in City of Los Angeles of Santa Marina del Rey to protect and create affordable housing, ensure housing of 134 units of affordable housing, right?
Thank you, sir. Your time is up.
Man.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I
That's
can't
right.
see that. Wow.
Thank you. Okay. Lydia, I can't make out the last name. Is it?
Ponce.
Okay. And after Lydia is Daisy Vega and Margaret Malloy.
It's heartbreaking the people displaced the unaffordability of our City of Angels. The Mellow needs some interim controls. It does not really need a huge redraft, not really. The Mellow just does need some teeth put into it, some controls, but leave the final decisions and the reviews in the hands of HCID, not city planning. The development now that is currently violating the Mellow is resulting in lower density, for example, 6 units to 2 or 1. These are huge McMansions. The type of development is encouraging these low-density McMansions. Expensive and not available to most Angelenos. The feasibility is a joke. It's never been found to be feasible. Not one unit has been replaced in the last 6 to 8 years that I know of. We need community member oversight committee. We need this for the housing and for Mellow, just like the sheriff's oversight committees and just like the police. Working on this ordinance, there's simple tweaks and additions such as controls. Work with the community that the lack of enforcement causes displacement or zero replacement. Work with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Daisy Vega, Margaret Malloy.
Sí, buenas tardes. La organización Power, Alpha, Western Center y Lawyer y propietarios han hecho una investigación real de $53,600,000 invertidos en 134 viviendas.
So the organizations, my name is Daisy Vega, the organizations Power, LAFLA, and Western Center on Law and Poverty we're able to attain $53,600,000 worth of development in 134 units.
Esto fue hecho en 2005-2009.
That was from 2005 to 2009.
Lo que tenemos que hacer es proteger nuestras viviendas públicas.
What we have to do is protect our public housing.
Public housing. Y también proteger a nuestras diversidades de personas que están viviendo en el área.
We have to protect the diversity of the people that are living in the area.
Como lo hace la organización Bell, que está dando viviendas públicas de bajos recursos.
¿Cuál organización?
Belmar.
Like the organization Belmar that's providing public housing for people for low income.
Es un gran ejemplo a tomar. No desaparezcamos esta ley porque es muy importante para todas nuestras culturas y las personas que están trabajando en el área.
It's a very important thing that we not let this law disappear because we need to make sure that we have the diversity of cultures and people in this area that are working in the area.
Acuérdense que sus mamás sobrevivieron con este tipo de viviendas y ahora son lo que son aquí presente.
It's because your mothers had access to this type of housing that you are able to be here today.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you, committee members, and welcome, Mr. Bertoni. You have a large task ahead of you. I hope you're listening, Mr. Bertoni. I am suggesting that Mellow Act protects all residential units in the coastal zone, not just very low income units. It is protecting long-term tenants, and that is a huge spectrum of the rental population. So I'm not just talking about very low income. I'm talking about all residential units in the coastal zone. I would suggest that you create an opportunity to register all buyouts. We have a really significant problem in Venice where entire apartment buildings are being emptied. They're being presented as hotels. None of them are permitted. It's an illegal activity. They say that the tenants left willingly, but there is an incredible history in your department of change of use complaints on file, years of change of use complaints unanswered. A registration of all buyouts would solve the problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Amy Doring, Jorge Hernandez, Irma Gonzalez.
Hello, can you hear me? Yes. I am the crisis on the ground. I have lived in Venice, California for over 20 years. I live in an 8-unit apartment building for 18 years. They're in the process of Ellis acting and trying to remove tenants right now. I would hope that I could rely on you to enforce the mellow bottom line that exists. I can't find anywhere on your website who to reach out to, but I do know that my community is active and I can look to power. And if you go on to do further determination within the Mellow Act, I would hope that you would use the community that is very active with this regard. You have community members who are here speaking to you, who have worked every day for people in the community who want to be a part of the process. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Welcome.
Hello, I'm George Hernandez. I live in Venice. My building is about to be taken over by developers. We had 6 affordable housing. Now they're only replacing it with 2. They want me to waive my rights by forcing me on a buyout, which I've been living in Venice for quite a while, and I have all my doctors there and everything, that all my friends, my community there. I'd like to be a part of, if there's any changes to the Mellow Act, I'd like to be a part of that. And I would hope that you, understand that we, as tenants, especially low-income tenants with disabilities, are protected. Thank you.
Thank you. Irma Gonzalez. After Irma is Jaime Zeledon, Manuel Pos.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Irma González, vengo de San Fernando Garden, pertenezco a la organización de Power. Estoy aquí con el propósito de apoyar a la nueva ley, la ley de Melo.
Okay, so my name is Irma Gonzalez. I come from San Fernando Gardens, from Pacoima with the organization Power, and I'm here to support this new Mellow Act law.
Esperando que salgamos adelante con estos nuevos proyectos y estoy para seguir apoyando.
Yep, I hope that we continue to achieve and continue to succeed with our new projects, and that's it, right? Continue, seguirá, and keep on going.
Thank you.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Jaime Zeledón, soy presidente de la organización Power, vivo en West LA.
Hello, my name is Jaime Zeledon. I'm the president of Power. I live in West LA.
Estoy acá para apoyar el acta Medlo porque sabemos que el área de Venice es un área en peligro. Muchos de nuestros hermanos afroamericanos y latinos, gente pobre, está siendo amenazada con sus viviendas.
So I'm here to talk about the Mellow Act because Venice is an area where our African American and Latino brothers and sisters are in danger, are under attack.
Estoy acá representando a miles de familias que viven a lo largo y lo ancho de Los Ángeles. No solamente estamos apoyando el acta de Medlo, sino el preservar e implementar el acta Medlo y garantizar las viviendas para nuestros hermanos de color, no solamente de Venice, sino del sur centro de Los Ángeles, el distrito del señor Guizar, en Boylan High, todas las áreas donde hay concentración de afroamericanos, latinos, gente de color.
I'm here to support not just the people in Venice and to say that we have to protect their housing, but all of the people of color, African American and Latino people of color in all of the districts, South Central, Boyle Heights, and anywhere where we have concentrations of people who need housing protection.
Esto está conectado también con el Día del Inquilino, que es el 23 de abril, que es nuestra celebración.
And this is connected to the Renters' Day, the 23rd of April celebration that we will be having. So,
Gracias. Manuel Pos, Bill Prislick, Alexander Harudun.
Muy buenas tardes, mi nombre es Manuel Pos, vengo como miembro de Power, apoyando esta ley de acta de Melo.
Hi, my name is Manuel Pos. I'm a member of Power, and I support the Mellow Act.
Para decirle a ustedes como miembros del concilio y recibir el apoyo de ustedes, como cuando ustedes en los momentos de elecciones reciben el apoyo de nosotros, así queremos el apoyo de ustedes, porque como seres humanos y pobres que somos necesitamos el apoyo de ustedes para tener viviendas accesibles para nosotros y para todos los hermanos que están sufriendo en estos momentos. Dios les bendiga y gracias.
So, just as you all, as members of the council, look to us for support on election day, we need your support, all of us who, especially those of us who are poor and need affordable housing, and that was what I came to say.
Gracias. Thank you.
Now I'm up, right? Okay. So my name is Bill Przlecki. I'm an organizer and the executive director with Power. We've been working since 1999 on enforcing the Mellow Act and working to preserve and create affordable housing in Venice. As you've heard from some of our members, we've had great success. The Mellow Act does work. It has created, through the National Committee for Responsive Philanthropy Study, we saw $53 million there in total, ballpark $100 million worth of new affordable housing, so it doesn't kill development. As Lydia said, the new development that we're seeing in Venice is actually lower density than what we already have, so the preservation aspect is going to be really important. We do want to work with you on all of that. And one other key point that hasn't been made as clearly yet is that the HCID really needs to be the lead agency on hiring the consultant, the economic consultant who will help set guidelines for feasibility and figure out partial unit in lieu fees, because they're the ones who actually build housing on a daily basis, and they have the in-house expertise to hire the consultant and oversee that work.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Alexander Hardin. I'm with the Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles. I'm just going to recap a lot of what's already been said, but as the attorneys of record on the city's Mellow Act settlement, the Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles and the Western Center of Law and Poverty should be an integral part of this process, and we would request to be granted extra time at future hearings to be able to share our expertise from the past 16 years. The motion should be further revised to state that that the interim administrative procedures would be the starting point for this ordinance to ensure that we can build on past successes and maximize affordable housing preservation and production in the coastal zone. Finally, we would like to echo what's already been said. We feel that the appropriate city department to lead the economic study would be Housing and Community Investment, as they have the economic expertise to successfully carry out the feasibility study. Thank you.
Thank you. Kimmy Miller, Wayne.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Kimmy Miller, and I just want to echo everything that's been said. I'm in complete support of the Mellow Act and strengthening it, and the main reason is I'm a success story of it. I live at 512 Rose Avenue in Venice. I've been there for 2.5 years, and our building has 70 units and 7 affordable housing apartments, one of which I live in. And all I can say is that when it took 3 months to get that apartment, it was the most arduous process I've ever gone through, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me in my life. And I can only say that I wish everybody that is low income, that needs affordable housing, and that you have the authority and the ability to make that happen. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Wayne from the House.
Yes. The Venice plan. That's all I had to say 2 months ago, and you forced Michael LeGrand out of here because Michael LeGrand had the Venice plan, which was a big part of this. So you got rid of the guy who had the best chance of helping Venice, and you put the puppet, Mr. Rigatoni, inside this panel, but you got sued. You're not voluntarily doing shit. You were forced by a court order. You were under a court order. And as Nuri Martinez understands, court orders mean serious shit if you violate a court order. So you must comply. Stop fucking people in Venice. Stop screwing around with the Mello Act. Start following it. It's a court order. When you violate it, I hope they have you all held in contempt of court.
Holly Mosher.
Hello, my name is Holly Mosher. I was in Venice, and this summer I was able to see 3 Mello Act appeals where they found, or 2 appeals, one at 728 Flower and one at 1015 Fifth Avenue, and 3 Mello units were found, and the people are still not back in those units. I really am in favor of the Mello Act, but the enforcement, there was perjury, there was forgery, and the city is not going after that. There was an elderly woman and 2 disabled people displaced from their homes. It's been over a year since they've been displaced. The Mello Act, the appeal worked, but it was a whole rigmarole. So enforcement, going after the people that are breaking this and strengthening it. But people need their homes. There's a lack of affordable housing in LA. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our public comment on this item. And for those visitors today who heard some vulgar language in public comment, it is unfortunately, or fortunately, part of our First Amendment, which we allow for public speaking for here. That's been tested through the courts. But we do ask some type of rapport that allows for discussions of these items when we have them. Thank you. So that concludes this item. This motion will be referred to staff, and we will consult with Council District 5 and Councilmember Bonner's office on the progress of the staff evaluation and when we can hear this again in this committee. So we'll follow up with this item and Councilmember Bonner. Thank you very much. This item is no objections.
Chair?
Yes.
Is on the question of who should have jurisdiction, you're in both committees. What are the policy distinctions on whether or not it should be before HCID or in planning? I'm unclear on that.
That is under the purview of the council president, Councilman Cedillo. So the motion was refer to Plum. If you like that motion to go to your committee, the process is to ask Mr. Wesson.
I'm interested in the policy distinctions or the policy virtue of it being in one under one jurisdiction than the other. I'm agnostic on it right now, so I'm just interested in hearing I heard advocacy for the position that it should be an HCID instead of Plum, but I don't know why one makes more sense than the other.
Well, the motion instructs planning and the housing department. So the issue of the economic study and the feasibility studies fall within the purview, rightfully so, of the housing department.
I understand that. So I'm still not, that's more information, but I'm still not clear why there's a virtue of it being in one or the other. And it seems to me the sequence, Mr. Chairman, looking to your guidance on this, that the sequence might have more impact on it. So
on any, no se puede oír? You can hear me. If you could speak into the microphone, Mr. Cedillo.
Perdón. Excuse me. I'm interested in it's just a straight policy question. I'm agnostic on this. But I'm interested in what are the policy virtues of it being an HCID versus in planning. I don't know why one is better than other. I've heard advocacy. I heard some lawyers and other people come up and say, this is why it should be here, or this is what it should be. I didn't hear so much why. This is what it should be, but I don't know why that it's better in HCID than it is in planning. I'm interested in, or I'm wondering if sequence has anything to do with it in terms of where we start a project, how it moves forward, and where the importance of vigilance of the Mello Act is in terms of the process where that might be more determinative in terms of value for tenants than what department it's in.
Yeah, and let me, I think our CLA is correct. our council president determines what committees the motions go through. And on this particular one, it wasn't referred to HSID, correct? To the housing
It was
committee?
not, Councilman.
Okay.
The motion is
And we
solely
could,
in
so there's
Plum.
two layers. One is the council president decides what committees they go to. Another layer is in committee, oftentimes certain motions or items are referred by vote of that committee to another committee. We could do that now if you so wish. Typically as well, we give the courtesy to the maker of the motion. In this case, it's Councilmember Bonin to see if they could consult with you or anybody who has an interest in referring it to the Housing Committee. So I'm very interested in hearing from Councilmember Bonin's office, or if you're interested in any opinion as to whether this should be referred to Housing Committee or not. Or my opinion is this. If we could, since we're just referring it to staff, perhaps at this point in time, have the motion be referred to staff, but request that the substance and the report back could come back to both housing and planning. However, if it's both departments that are involved, if it's just planning, well, the report should just come back to this committee.
Tricia Keene, Director of Land Use and Planning for Councilmember Bonin. I think that makes a lot of sense. The Mello Ordinance would need to be, both planning and housing have an important role in ensuring that the Mello Act is followed. There's a planning element to it with the processing of the cases, and as I think a few of the public speakers mentioned today, there's an important piece of the puzzle that housing plays regarding whether or not the feasibility analysis is done correctly and whether or not we really figure out how to ensure that there are affordable housing developed. So I think the plan of having the report back go to both Plum and the Housing Committee makes a lot of sense so that we can cover all the bases on that when we have something proposed.
So would that be okay with you? Because at this point, if we refer the motion to the committee, we just take additional time. But if we refer the report back to both committees and send the case file to both committees on the report back, it'll save us some time in that step. Yeah?
Yes, that makes more sense.
Okay.
I agree that that's most efficient. I'm still searching for an answer to that question, and maybe in the report back we'll find that. Obviously, it makes sense. I mean, the motion was for it to come here, and so it makes sense that we're here talking about it. I'm just really interested in the policy question. That's it.
Okay. That's all. All right. Thank you. Mr. Harris-Dawson.
Mr. Chair, if it's not out of order, could we actually ask the legal experts that testified to give their opinion on this?
The public comments closed, but the planning department is here, and I think they can weigh in on the on your question.
That's good. That's good for him. I want to know what they think.
Well, you need to reopen if you're going to do that and give people an opportunity if you want to hear questions from them.
Okay. For me to be consistent in this committee, if a member of this committee asks to hear from a member of the public, we give them that courtesy to come up and speak. So I'll be consistent with that. If there's a member from the audience that a committee member would like to hear from, they could ask for that person to come up and speak. So, but I understand on the legal substance that you may ask some questions, Harris-Dawson. On the internal procedures, I'm not sure if they're going to shed light on that. So.
This is Simon Pastuch with City Planning Department. Just quickly for Councilman Cedillo's comment, the Housing Department and Planning Department have two different roles, but they're intertwined in the process. So we're analyzing both the tenant information, the rental income, their income, and that is housing's expertise. And then the second part is just a discretionary action, but they're intertwined in the whole process because that determines how many affordable units are existing. Then also, if we determine that, then how you record the covenant and the location. And so they've been intertwined. And then there's the second part, which has to do with feasibility, which has to do sometimes on these lower number projects, they have an option of submitting a feasibility analysis to see if it's affordable to replace the units on site. And that's where housing expertise would be very helpful. Plus, as we go in through, that's just on implementation on case by case. Then there's also developing an ordinance, which has two components to it also. It's like looking at what is feasible and affordable for the ordinance when we talk about what's the in lieu fee, those sort of components also, and we need their expertise in that, and also getting a good consultant on board. So hopefully that answers your question, Councilman.
That's interesting, and I think it's maybe helpful. Who acts first, and does it matter?
It is, usually it's driven by the planning department getting the application to review for a mellow clearance, and then that triggers under the IAP that they have to send that information. The applicant has to go over to the housing department and submit information regarding the tenant rental rates and then tenant information. And then they, in turn, housing goes through their own process of
I saw that.
tenants and also looking at the information.
So you guys act first. I saw that on the schematic that's it's on the website. So then you guys act first. You're the first person to
Right,
look
we're
at
the
this.
starting point, but then it triggers serious things until we can't finish our action until we get results back from housing.
Helpful. Thank you.
Mr. Harris-Dawson, did you have...
Thank you. So you all made an argument or a testimony that you wanted HSID involved in a particular way, and I just wanted to hear more about what your expected outcomes were as a result of that.
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity to clarify our position. It is sort of hard to get all the important information into 1 minute. Based on our history of working on the Mellow Act, whether it was the settlement or prior attempts at an ordinance or developers who have sought to get out of Mellow Act compliance, we have found that when the feasibility analysis is housed by the planning department, it's been problematic because that's not their area of expertise. What we have found is that the housing department has the economic expertise to oversee and hire the consultants. Staffing-wise, they don't have time maybe to do the studies, but when we've been able to pull full feasibility out of planning and house that in the housing department, and they hire the consultant, oversee it, and give recommendations based on it, it's been a much better process for everybody involved. So we weren't necessarily asking for a double referral to the housing committee. We were saying in this process, one tweak to the motion, one revision would be that housing would be the department to hire the consultant and report out on that. Because this is a cross-cutting ordinance where both departments are involved. I can say in my 16 years of working on this, we've never had a referral to the housing committee. It's always been plum since it is a planning ordinance, but housing does have a very specific role.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so that was helpful. I would request then, if it's okay with my colleagues, that we refer this motion to staff, by which we mean both the planning department and the housing department.
And city attorney council.
And city attorney. And on the report back, that we come back to Plum and to the housing committee as well. I was just informed by our city clerk, and she corrected me, that when a committee refers a motion to another committee, it is for discussion purposes only, and the president has the what? How did you word it?
The committee can't act on the item. If the committee wants to act, then the council president would have to do that additional referral.
Okay. So we have a report back. Our motion is to refer to housing and to planning. Report back to both housing committee and planning committee.
Okay. In addition, Councilman, there were a couple of amendments that were submitted by CD 11, and I believe those were...
Earlier I said CD 5, right? I meant CD 11, yes, and my opponent.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
To the city clerk.
Yeah, people confuse CD 1 and CD 14 all the time, too, on the east side. So.
I heard that this morning.
Anyway, we heard that this morning, so...
Party.
So, I'm sorry, but amendments by CD 11, Councilmember Bond's office, yes.
Yes, so those amendments were submitted to the clerk, and in addition, embedded in the planning department January 28th report, there's a request for funding through the budget process for a housing monitoring unit and a code amendment unit that would enforce the Mellow Act ordinance.
Yeah.
That request, we're recommending that it be referred to the CAO to work with the planning department on any funding that is necessary, and that can be addressed through the budget process.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Okay. Happy to do that with those amendments. Any objections?
So
Seeing none, so ordered. Thank you. Next item.
Next item, Councilman, is a report from the Planning Commission. This relates to a general plan amendment and a zone change for 72 dwelling units, 6 of those which will be low-income units in CD10.
Okay. We had actually scheduled this item for consent, but we have some public comment, so we'll go through public comment, and unless committee members would like to hear a full report on this, we'll hear from public comment in the interim. Margaret Malloy and Wayne.
Hello.
Hello.
I would just like to say that I think creating a new standard by giving these variances to a developer who will create 72 units of housing, but only 6 units of affordable housing, but ultimately change create a new standard. I don't think that's a good ratio, and I'm opposed to this. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Wayne.
Horrible, disgusting, rotten, evil, against people, but you know where it is, Marquise? It's at CD10. So, that's the problem, isn't it? Which one of you will vote no against the mighty Herb Wesson? Which one of you will tell him no and stand with the people? Who will save us?
Wayne, try to
Who will save us?
Wayne, please stick to the subject matter beforehand.
Taking my time.
Thank you.
Yes, you're taking my time because I'm talking about the mighty God, Herb Wesson Jr., and this is in his district. That's all. I don't think any of you have jurisdiction over CD10. Last time I looked, none of you live there, I hope. And I don't think any of you have the guts to go against the mighty Herb Wesson. No, no, no.
Thank you. Any objection on this item? Seeing none, so ordered. We'll move this item.
Councilman, on this item, the Planning Department submitted revisions to recommendations 1 through 4.
Okay.
And
We'll approve those items as is. Thank you. Next item.
There are public comment.
Public comment. We have 2 public comment cards. Ron Bitzer. Ron Bitzer. Bitzer Ron. Not here. Wayne. Public comment. As this relates to planning. Thank you.
Yes, planning. It's good to see the CD12 puppet has returned to the committee after a long absence. And it's good to see Marquise's leaving now. But planning is out of control. Now, on item 4, which was going to be continued.
Sir, Wayne.
You said no.
Wayne, can you hold this time, please? Wayne, these are the rules.
You said no.
Public comment, you could speak on anything as it relates to planning, but
Right.
you cannot speak on any other agenda item that is on today's agenda. You had your opportunity at that time, and now this is open.
You didn't
for anything
take
else.
cards
Thank you.
on it, did you? So, you said no. It was in CD10. An actual appeal was being sustained against the mighty slave master Herb Wesson Jr. What guts? Well, it's 1 out of 100 opportunities. Yes, there they go, running like rats out of a sinking ship because the sailing is going down. The city is being toxified by gas. And what's the councilman from CD12 doing? Trying to build more stuff in Porter Ranch. He's a scumbag. Vote no on Herb Wesson Jr. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. Always a pleasure. Any other items on the agenda? Seeing none, meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much.